I'm Julia.
And I'm Eli.
And welcome back to Mob Talks. Let's talk about Jimmy Calandra, one of the most talked about podfathers on YouTube today. He was part of the Bath Avenue crew in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, a crew known for doing robberies, drugs, violence, and earning their way into the real mafia. Now he's online telling stories, and the big question is Jimmy Calandra redeemed, or is he just monotonizing his past? That's what we're here to find out. Jimmy grew up in an environment where mob guys were basically the neighborhood celebrities. As a kid, they were hanging in cafes, driving nice cars around, and throwing money like it was nothing. Jimmy and his friends, Paulie Guino, Joey Calco, Tommy Reynolds, eventually formed a Bath Avenue crew. And from everything Jimmy says, this crew wasn't just some street gang, they were like a farm team hoping to get noticed by the bigger families. Taken straight from Jimmy's own words, the crew was doing robberies, selling drugs, doing stick-ups, and getting involved in very violent situations. He talks a lot about the 1992 Staten Island bank robbery. This bank robbery eventually got him arrested in 1993 and sent to Lewisburg. What's really interesting about Jimmy's story is how casual he is when he's describing crimes that honestly are pretty violent. You get the sense that he's trying to show you how numb he was back then, but you're also aware of the fact that he's also choosing which parts of the story to emphasize.
When I went away, I was 23 years old. I caught a bank robbery. I also had a 4 to 8 pending. I beat up a guy with an axe handle. Some girl called me. Some guy was banging on her door. And I got out with an axe handle. I had a 380 on me. And as I'm beating the guy up with an axe handle, there's a lady across the street looking out the window, watching me beat this guy down. She ends up calling the cops. I hop in my car. This happened in Marine Park. And I had a 380 on me. 2 blocks away, the cops pull me over. They find the 380 and they find the axe handle all bloodied up. I end up getting a 4 to 8 with that. That ran concurrent with my federal bank robbery.
At some point in Jimmy's story, things start to fall apart. Crew members are killing each other, turning on each other, people are getting arrested, people flip-flopping. Jimmy ends up cooperating with the government. He testifies against his own friends that he grew up with, and this is why a huge part of why he gets so much hate, because he broke the Omerta Code. There's even a story about someone throwing coffee at him when he returned to Brooklyn and yelling "rat." This goes to show how deep the stigma is. Today, Jimmy runs a channel called A Bath Avenue Story. He tells old school street stories, personal memories, and he even cries when he talks about the people that he lost. His whole brand is based on raw, emotional, unfiltered trauma. And honestly, some of his stories are very powerful. He talks about regrets, trauma, and the stupidity of the street life. Those parts definitely feel real. Here's where things get complicated. On one hand, Jimmy says he's telling these stories so younger kids don't make the same mistakes. And you can feel the remorse, the real remorse in his voice, especially when he talks about his mother or other people who died. But he also does a lot of trash talking, a lot of insulting language, calling other former mob guys rats or fat scumbags, or attacking other podcasters. It really makes you wonder, is he trying to teach kids a lesson, or is he trying to stay entertaining to keep his channel alive? The reality of the situation is that these channels make money. They get views, subscribers, sponsorships. So even though Jimmy says he's promoting redemption, he's also profiting from the very thing that he regrets.
So just getting to my point and going back on my life, how it destroyed everything I was looking forward to doing. You know, I was in the middle of going to get married. I was going to get married. Of course, I would have had children. So my whole life got hit with a twist and a turn. And with that happening, it was a heartbreaker. You know, I'm back
in Jimmy's old neighborhood, they see him as a traitor. They don't forgive informants. So even though Jimmy talks about changing his life, he can never really go back home. This is an interesting contradiction, as he's telling redemption stories, but the people who live that life don't believe that he's changed. This is my take on Jimmy Calandra. After looking at his past, his channel, the interviews, here's my honest opinion. Jimmy Calandra is a mix of genuine trauma, real regrets, and strategic performance. Part of him truly wants to show what the mafia life really cost him, but he also really enjoys the attention, and he knows how dramatic stories keep the subscribers and the money coming. Is he redeemed? Maybe. Is he capitalizing on his past? Definitely.
Thank you, Julia. I think your take on this is something we can all agree with.
Thanks, Eli.
Okay, now I would like to discuss Frank Calabrese Jr. as an online figure linked to the Chicago outfit for exposing his father, Frank Calabrese Sr., about his criminal and mafia past. Obviously, his criminal past is interesting, but how he presents himself today through YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok and his podcast poses a central question. Is he truly redeemed, or is he just using his redemption as a branding identity? Okay, so just some background on Calabrese Jr. He grew up in a violent and secretive, pressure-filled mob environment. He says he cooperated with the FBI initially to survive and escape his criminal past. He describes his abuse and fear as motivation for turning his father and kind of getting away from his mafia-central life. Emotional and genuine moments do appear when he retells his stories and kind of digs deep into his past, but the trending question about him specifically is he really redeemed, or is he really going deeper into his emotional side to brand his books and the rest of his marketing scheme?
In Chicago, you weren't supposed to bring your kids into this life. You were supposed to make a better life for your kids. I was born into this life. My dad and my uncle were both high-ranking made members of the Chicago mob. My dad was a hitman. He was part of an elite.
In a lot of Frank Calabrese's marketing and social media posts, he uses a hashtag aimed at true crime enthusiasts and not reform-minded audiences. He uses hashtags like hashtag Chicago outfit, hashtag mob life, hashtag true crime, and hashtag mafia stories. He rarely uses tags involving either redemption or community work, healing, or any sort of philanthropic organizations. And his Instagram and YouTube heavily highlights his book, his interviews, and his personal success and visibility. So the way his marketing goal kind of seems to come off to the general population is marketing over mission. He feels more like promoting a brand than promoting awareness of organized crime's harm, and content built around even nostalgia and storytelling rather than activism. He doesn't attack other informants, but he avoids criticizing the online culture that glamorizes rats, loyalty to the crime families, omerta, the mafia code of silence, and he indicates he still caters to an audience that romanticizes mob values, like that true crime audience that he kind of seems to trend to in his podcast and his public speaking. There's also a lack of community engagement throughout his marketing, so there's no visible charity involvement or any youth outreach programs or any anti-violence or anti-crime initiatives. So most of his public activity revolves around paid podcast appearances, his book promotion to his Operation Family Secrets book that he wrote about his past life and his dad's past life, a lot of film and documentary involvement, and his storytelling, like I said earlier, is highly emotional, but obviously highly profitable for him, especially in the podcast where he seems to dive deep and show his kind of emotional side to his viewers.
Like to come and work with me in the outfit, and why go to college? He didn't do that. He was grooming me. He was being a father, and somehow that course started going towards grooming me more and more.
So my overall assessment on his marketing is his online presence is less about reform and more about balancing entertainment and remorse, strongly centered on maintaining relevance through mob-related content. His redemption functions like half of a confession and half of a marketing strategy. So in conclusion, in my opinion at least, Frank Calabrese Jr. is not fully redeemed. His platforms emphasize book sales, paid podcasts, and personal branding. Although it's obvious that he's going to get paid on his public redemption stories, his financial gain appears to be the primary driver. His messages lack advocacy, community work, and action that actually demonstrates meaningful transition from his crime life to his redeemed life. So a result, at least to the public, is that his persona is built more on profit from the past rather than growth beyond it.
Great take, Eli. Frank Calabrese Jr. definitely sounds like someone who's profiting from his past.
I agree.
Well, that's it on this episode of Mob Talk.
Thank you for tuning in.